class of the UX UI course for the semester. We're going to be sharing my screen very soon. If we do get interrupted, it's because we're having a lighting issue this week. So we'll get that resolved, and we'll just have to continue where we left off. All right, so let's share the screen and let's get started. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have the YouTube channel accessible now. So if you do miss a class or you want to repeat the lecture, what we covered, especially in the later part of the semester, we are going to get more technical with software and interactive type of application use, whether it's XD or Figma. You might want to watch the class again. It's hard to remember all this stuff while you're paying attention, writing notes and following me at the same time. So that's why I find these lectures really useful, being recorded. So you can access it from here. This is your virtual class link, as we know already. And now we're accessing the second week, which is part of our Introduction to User Experience Design. So if you click on that link, you will have classes in order. Last week, we did cover the introduction, the UX basics, design basics, what it is and how exactly the industry has the whole scope of UX design, what are the expectations, the things like that. As we dive further into this topic, you'll see a lot more detailed steps and instructions on how we're going to pursue this. Now, there's also the assignment that I gave you last week. That is the website critique. I gave you some few samples. I did show you a lot of other examples from other students. So this is due next week. So you do have some time for this. I kind of gave you some time to slowly, get in gear with this whole semester. Some of you mentioned with the stress level of other classes and assignments. So we'll try to take it easy, right? So every other week, something should be kind of due in this class. If not every second week, usually that's the expectation here. So just get ready for that. So I think that's all done. Sometimes if we do miss something, I do cover it the following class, but it looks like we got everything covered. So this is now the second class. I will unleash or release more modules. So as we go further, like next week, you'll have the user research and analysis section available, and that will dive further into the other parts of the UX sessions. There's one video I'm gonna share with you. Next week is the video week. That's where I get to. That's the only time I get to let you watch an actual YouTube video of other designers doing UX design as a career path once they transition from graphic design to UX design. So next week, I'll show you a video. I'll kind of fast forward it if I can, just to get to the point. So we'll get into that segment after. So this is class number 2. We're going to look at the process elements, the UX strategy essentials, and we're going to create an actual, just to get you more engaged in this, we are going to make an exercise today, an in-class exercise, not something you hand in for marks, but it goes toward your participation. This is going to be a design discussion. So we're going to have a design discussion today. This is how we engage as a whole unit, and you're going to upload your design here later this evening, okay? So you're going to design a chat bubble. The chat bubble or call to action bubble is something that you see almost every day on websites, mobile devices and things like that. We're going to focus on websites first. Halfway through the semester, we'll shift our attention to mobile. So from websites to mobile, we're going to cover, both spectrums because they're both equally important. So that's something we'll do today as well later on. So as of now, let's look at the process elements, and I'm going to download the PDF, which is better presented that way. This is an older one that I kept from the previous class that was delivered here. I think it's important. There's some nice, interesting points on it. So I'm going to go over that first, and then I'm going to cover my other additional material that I added in there. So let's go back to the desktop here. I'm going to open it up. So as I mentioned earlier, before like UX became such a popular topic with user interface design, we didn't have the smartphones. It was mostly for web design. So the web design evolutionized where we are today, and that's why you have responsive websites and other products. This is the user interface design section of how, basically designing a website and some of the important factors that you have to consider when you get into the design part. I know you guys have been doing HTML, some basic wireframing, planning methods, but maybe not a deep dive into the actual design fundamentals. So these are some of the more popular things that were quoted. This is Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, that was the founder of Apple. Design is not just what it looks and feels like. Design is how it works. Okay. So the functionality is what's important. It's not just looks, right? It's how it actually works. This is the web design process. You're probably familiar with some of these things. I don't know if you implement all of them, but it's important to reiterate and reemphasize some of these points. So more than any other type of design, web design is most effective when following a structured process. With so many variables and small details, working through a decision step by step can eliminate critical errors before launch. So these are the four first items that are highlighted in blue. You have the research, you have the wireframe, the mockups, and the optimization. Do you guys do that first? In Felicia's class, for example? Well, you should, right? Yeah. You probably get right into the coding, right? HTML, CSS, testing and launching. So there's two parts to this. That's why there's the design department, there's the development department, or the front end design, front end development, whichever you want to see it. But these are all critical because if you don't do these preliminary steps, you can't just go there and make a website, right? You have to have a plan, a vision, color scheme, images, sources, plan, right? You got to do it. So that's why this is important that you follow this rule. Okay, it still applies today, even with mobile designs. Even if you do any type of design, print design, web design, any product design, you have to follow these steps. So first comes the research, the wireframe, the mockups, the optimizing. Now we're going to break that down into my other UX module that I'm going to explain, but those are the most critical things I want you to really, really consider. Okay. So let's talk about research. What is research? Research is something that you're doing now with your website critique. You're kind of looking at other websites, you're researching what's good, what's bad, you're doing your own critical thinking, okay? You're spending time surfing, looking at other websites critically. Review the features of other sites. Do they use video? Is it wordy? What kind of slider are they using? Looks and shapes, colors, placement, typography, and trends emerge. Think about what isn't being done. Is there opportunity to be innovative? Okay, so that's what the research page is all about. Research helps you establish your communication goals. What are you saying and who are you saying it to? So these are the things you have to really, really ask yourself. Okay. Wireframes help you plan. Have any of you done wireframes before? Like by hand? And I saw yours were nice actually too. Anybody else? What'd you do wireframes for? Uh-huh. What was it for, like your WDDM class? Yeah, it was before, yeah. Okay. Right, so if you guys do other courses in the past and stuff, you were probably introduced to the wireframe model. This is how you would actually sketch out a website, and then you would actually know how to execute it. Believe it or not, this helps so much. Looking at this, you can understand. Maybe people across the street might not know, but you know that's a video. These are little thumbnails of images. This might be like text or title or paragraph. I think so. Hey, yeah, like. Jeff is on the screen. Right. Everyone wearing sunglasses. Everyone that puts sunglasses at home, right? I got my sunglasses here too. All right. So the wireframe helps you plan. This is what an example looks like. A simple sketch goes a long way. Then there's more professional wireframes that you build using other, applications. Even Illustrator is really good at building these things. That's right. Yeah. So basically you can see, I'll show you like real life examples of more complex websites, how the designers put it in practice. right? It's like when you make logos. Have you done business cards before? You do these little sketches, get ideas, right? This might not be the overall final solution, but it's a good way for you to start. Because once you start this and you communicate to the client and say, this is what you want, the client will say, you know what? I like this, but I want to see this over here and I want this over here. Right? So now you have an idea or a vision how to get started. Then you produce the design and then you take it from there. Right? It's a way to communicate. Wireframes focus on functionality of your site, not the look, the functionality, right? They help you figure out what content you need for your site. Information architecture, so not AI, but IA, information architecture, that's what it stands for, is planned out for consistency and ease of navigation. Preliminary page layout decisions are made based on information hierarchy. Hey, how's it going? The lights don't work. Last week they were fine. I can't. Hold on. You don't do it from here anymore. Doesn't work. What's that? A battery. I don't know you can do it from here. Okay, thank you. That's why you're the expert.
I mean, you could have used the request assistant, but.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But I'll do
I guess you tell your other teachers now. I was hitting the switch over there because last week I was doing that.
I'll look into this. I think.
It's the battery dead. I said, yeah. So this doesn't work. Very.
Because she was also trying to.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, UX design, right? Everything has to be, the user interface has to work. What's the point of teaching UX if we can't get the screen to look proper? So wireframes, again, information architecture is the biggest part of the whole scope, planned out for consistency and ease of navigation. A preliminary page layout decisions are made based on information hierarchy. Do you know what information hierarchy actually means? What's hierarchy? Right. It's like an orderly way of organizing things, right? Like this is here, this is over here, this is nested underneath this item, right? If you guys use like a schematic diagram, have you seen like one of those boxes where like a PowerPoint presentation, everything's connected with the boxes like a linear design? So it's a similar, simple way. I'll show you more complex wireframe designs, but for now, just a simple way to see it. This was wireframed in order for this to work. Okay, so I'll show you lots of examples, not to worry. A website wireframe, also known as page schematic or screen blueprint, is a visual guide that represents the skeletal framework of a website. This is a Wikipedia definition, okay, of what exactly this is. I got to reference the quotes there. How to make a wireframe, right? Here's a neater version of a wireframe. Some people like to sketch and use the pencils. Use a pencil and a ruler to create interface elements, right? Focus on the blocks of information on the page. Plan special features such as pop-ups or drop-down menus. Plan the transition between sections. Focus on how the site will work. So notice how the big how it will work. Very important, right? So the design is no useless if it doesn't work. It's to work, right? If you click on the button, it better take you somewhere, right? There's some examples here. I have a link here. So if you open this PDF that's accessible to all of you that I'm playing it, I'm going to click on this link here. Sometimes I cross my fingers because the link might not work eventually. So let's see. Let's hope it works. Yeah, it's still there. So there's a good article on wireframing, prototyping, mock-upping. What's the difference? So you kind of read all this. And this is pretty updated. So it's pretty cool. Of course, they'll throw you a bunch of advertising, but just ignore that. So there's the wireframe. There's an example of one. prototype. And there's the coding mechanism and everything else. Okay? Mockups, the interface. Here's where you put all of your ideas together. This is a snapshot of your web page, a static JPEG of what the design will look like. Now, this is an old handout. We're not going to use a static JPEG anymore, guys. We're going to use a program like Figma or XD and make this thing look real as possible. People will look at it and click on it and interact with it. So that's better than producing a picture or JPEG, although it works. You can still take a design that you make and show somebody a JPEG and say, here, do you like this? But they won't be able to interact with it. A JPEG is not an interactive format. A JPEG is a picture format. What does a JPEG even say? What does a JPEG even mean? What's a JPEG? Image format. What does it mean? Anyway, join photographic export group. I know this because we learned compressions back in the day. It's an image format that compresses the pixels to go on the internet, right? Now there's WebP, which is the Google format. Better, smaller, more compressed, even better for optimizing images on the internet. So it's always evolving. Make use of layers to create different states of the page. So before you would make layers in Photoshop, and you would do like the rollovers on different layers, different states, so you can see how they look like. That's right. But I didn't make you do the rollovers. I just made you do the mock-up and the design. Make use of as much of real content as possible. That means if you use lorem ipsum, I don't mind lorem ipsum, but don't overdo it. Maybe the body copy, but the headings, the buttons, make them look realistic, okay? This way the mock-up looks real. Can be created in Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. All of the standard seems to be Photoshop, and that is true. That's why I taught you Photoshop last semester, and we did a website design in Photoshop, and that was pretty cool. How many of you utilize those assets in your real HTML? Why not? Was it due before? Oh, it was due date. But do you see where I'm going with this? Those assets that you made in Photoshop, you can just plug them into your HTML if you planned it accordingly, right? So it's supposed to help you dump the images into the bin, right? Like a 1-2, right? So think about it next time. You make the design in Photoshop, you can export the assets and plug them into your real HTML. And all you do in HTML is put the placement holders, put the boxes, the text, the layout elements, and the images come from Photoshop. The mockup is the template for your coding structure. Okay? Optimizing. I just talked about this. Preparing the graphics. So optimizing, sometimes called slicing, extracts all the graphics for your website. Do you remember I showed you slicing last semester? A little bit? Slicing is an old technique. It still works. I prefer the thing I mentioned earlier, generating image assets. And you name the layer extensions in Photoshop, .png, .jpg, .svg, and then you export the assets for your HTML. That's how you optimize, you prepare the graphics for the websites. Somebody has to do this, guys. Okay? And guess who that person is? You. Right? Who else is gonna do it? You think the programmers know Photoshop? Maybe a little bit, but they don't care about Photoshop that much. So they're gonna say, here's my website. I need the graphics. I need everything sized and optimized properly. Because if you just dump an image and the image is this big, and the programmer makes it this big, you think that'll just magically make it this big? Visually, yes, but theoretically, no. Right? Because the image that you upload on the website still takes up this much space. So you really have to optimize it properly for the website to load fast, for Google to rank it on the SEO, for the meta tags to work properly. Everything is in sync, okay? Not just like, finding shortcuts to do things. You have to do it properly. That's why optimizing is a big part. As a web designer, your world pass on folders of optimized images to your programmers, and you plug them into the final site. And sorry, this other one. A process scaling down the size of your images and flattening effects for faster load times.
We did Photoshop and then the image up.
That's right. That's what this is talking about exactly. Now you're kind of thinking of, in hindsight, how can this benefit you going forward? If you do this again, how can you utilize all the stuff you're learning into a real world strategy? Because it should help you with other projects, right? I'll show you a lot of templates that I download. Even the other day, I was looking for a shopping cart, like a WooCommerce shopping cart website, and it came with a Photoshop design file, right? So I'll show you what it looks like. I mean, everything has a Photoshop template. So there's got to be a good reason why Photoshop is still included, even today. I know this is an older technique, but even then and now, it's still the same Photoshop fundamentals. So coding, HTML, CSS, and more. Now that the design of the site is complete, it needs to be programmed for a browser to load or read. The basic layout structure would be written in HTML and then style it with CSS. You guys know this already. You've done it before. This is for people that don't know anything about how this works. So just basic explanation. The interactive pieces of your site would be created using JavaScript, PHP, ActionScript, Flash. No more. Nobody uses Flash anymore. It's a thing of the past. But you would use CSS and JavaScript with HTML and many other coding languages. This is one of the steps that makes your website appear on the internet. So obviously you build the graphics in Photoshop, the images, build the HTML in a code editor like a Visual Studio or brackets or even Notepad. We use Notepad to write websites. And then you need a browser to serve the website. Okay. You need a server to upload it. You buy a domain name from GoDaddy and you put everything together and you build an actual site. I helped my friend launch a site the other day. He was selling something online, and I chose WordPress. Why did I choose WordPress? Very popular one. It's reliable. It's a CMS system. And what CMS stands for? Content Management System. That means people that don't know web design, I can set it up for them, and they can go in there and mess around with it, change the pictures, do their own editing. I can give them authorization to go there and update files. If you give them an HTML file, can you imagine giving your parents or your friends an HTML file and saying, here, edit your website? What are they going to do? But if you show them WordPress, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not hard. It's like them using like a WYSIWYG program. What you see, what you get. Testing and launching, very important. Once you have coded all your pages, this spelling is horrible. I still kept this thing. I didn't write this, by the way, but I used it from the previous thing. Once you have coded all your pages, next is to test it on the site for all the browsers like Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Opera, Explorer, even the newer ones right now. Next, you'll want to test on different devices such as mobile phones and tablets. Very important. You'll want to beta test it with friends and family to ensure that the site makes sense, that everything works, and that there's no spelling mistakes. The last step is to actually put the site live on the internet and start promoting. These are page layout principles, planning the page. Some of them are reflecting to what we covered last week, but these are the more definitive, simpler page layout terms that you're probably familiar with maybe Roberto's class. You're doing a portfolio, you're doing page layouts. These are also applicable to like InDesign, even web design. The process of designing a page is to organize the content in a way that will silently explain to the reader which order to read it and which elements are the most important. In addition to this, the reader must also be able to get a sense of the content without actually reading it. Page layout has many moving parts. So where do you begin? Contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. These are the four fundamental design page layout attributes that you can demonstrate or add to make this more, better user experience. Right? We're talking about user experience. These are all part of it. But what is contrast? Apple, this is an old Apple iPod ad that they use a lot. Do you guys remember that one or no? Remember the old iPod, right? They use a lot of colored backgrounds like blue, green, red, pink, all the hot colors with the black silhouette. So difference in size, color orientation, shape, etc. Indicate a shift in thought. Contrast occurs when two or more elements are different. 4 common methods of creating contrast are by using differences in size, value, color, and type. Contrast adds interest to the page and provides a means of emphasizing what is important or directing the reader's eye. Next thing is repetition using patterns. So readers gain comfort from having patterns repeat themselves at a consistent intervals or the same position. Repetition strengthens the design by stringing together separate elements on the page and cementing an association between them. Okay. So what kind of pattern do you see on this example here? Any patterns? Like repetition of images, right? Maybe like the flow of text, the titles, the subheadings. Alignment, creating order. Organize the page reduces chaos and increases legibility. Alignment will create order, organize page elements, group items, and create visual connections. Lack of alignment creates a sloppy, unorganized look. Consider the horizontal vertical alignment on your pages. Keep it balanced. Which one do you like better? This one or that one? Let's call this A. Let's call this B. Who likes A better? Hands up. Who likes B better? Hands up. See, it's like 50-50. They're both correct choices. None of them is wrong, right? I mean, this looks nicer, but the problem is with this, the image gets cut off. See, the image is cut off. That's a no-no. Like in design, you can't professionally, you can't put this ad out there. The image gets cut off like that. So either you move the image this way, I would scale it maybe. So make sure it bleeds to the page. It's called a bleed. Or just, maybe do like an alignment like that, right? Different way to kind of figure this out. Right. That's right. Absolutely. It looks more complete, right? It looks more professional. But in theory, most people like a more centered look. Like it's just neater and easier to focus on. But the image in this case creates a problem in the delivery of the design. Proximity. Keep like elements together. Creates relationships between elements. How close together or far apart. Elements are placed suggests a relationship or a lack of between otherwise disparate parts. This helps organize information, reduces clutter, and gives the reader a clear structure. Okay. So proximity, good use of space. I'm sure you heard that term. Minimalistic, all these things using proximity as your design element. I still keep this handout. It's an older one. I think it's very applicable today, even though in the more, more robust design, it still keep things in check. This is the UX strategy essential. So this is like the actual other PDF I have prepared. This is the one I prepared for this class. That's the one I used for the previous class. I'm going to download this one and go over it with you. After this is done, I'm going to give you like a workshop exercise, like a design discussion, and we're going to create something. What program are we going to use? Not yet. I gotta figure out. I want to sit. It's like a separate class. I got to teach everybody. We're gonna use Illustrator. You just had an Illustrator class, yeah? Because it's a design thing. We're focused on design, right? So we're gonna do design, and we're gonna use Illustrator. Okay. I know you guys have Illustrator, so maybe It's a good way to test your Illustrator skills right now. You're in second semester, so we'll see what you can do, right? But don't worry, there'll be plenty of time to use the Figma and XD, right? I think in week 4, week 5, we'll start with XD, and then Figma will start after, like in week, I think 8 or 9, we'll start with Figma. The thing is with this class, like I taught this like 10 years ago. I used to use Flash, okay? We used to use interactive websites with games and, action script and things like that. The very, very interactive virtual presentations. Those days are gone. Like they killed Flash, the plugins are done. So now, we're using different programs. Whatever they throw at us, Photoshop's always been there. Okay. Photoshop, Illustrator, they've been around for 30 years. As long as I've been doing this stuff. 25 years I've been doing this. Right? So that's how long Photoshop and Illustrator have been around for. They're not going anywhere. These other programs, they'll come and go. XD's gone already. Like it's there, but I don't know how long it'll be supported until. It's a good tool, mind you. You use it until they really discontinue it. Figma's here to stay for a while. We don't know how long. But once you learn these programs and the new ones come, you can easily adapt and learn and grow, right? That's how it is. Well, last week we started talking about UX. What is UX and UX versus UI, right? UI is obviously, we learned it's a big part of UX because UX is the main principle of everything. So basically, the 5 elements or planes of UX are these. I want you to remember these. Maybe write them down right now. I know this is accessible to you. You can download this, look at it. But if you write it down, you're going to remember it better. So I want you to write down strategy. The strategy is an important component of the beginning phase. Strategy. How do you strategize something? When you came to school this morning, you have to have a strategy on how to do it. Are you commuting with the train? Are you taking the GO train, the GO bus? Are you taking TTC? Are you driving? Are you taking Uber? Are you coming with a friend? You strategize how to get here, right? What are you gonna wear? What are you gonna bring with you in your bag? You have to create a strategy, right? Then the scope. The features and functions contained within the site. And what's realistic? Taking an Uber for Mississauga, it's gonna cost me like $70. Get that. It's nice, comfortable, but why would I blow $70 on Uber ride when I can take the bus and get here with 10 minutes? So now you're scoping the situation, right? Structure, right? How many stops are you gonna make? What are you gonna do first before you get to school? Do you have other things you have to do that are more important? Maybe if you have like a whole morning ahead of you, you might want to do other things along the way that will help you with school. Maybe prepare some other items, right? And then the skeleton, of course, optimize organizational visual elements. That's when you start maybe coming to school and you're doing designs and planning and stuff. And surfaces using the UI screens, images, text, things you actually design and work with. I know I gave you this very sloppy example, but you get the idea of real life comparisons, how this thing works, right? But in the UX UI field, this is how they're kind of broken down. So if you're writing down strategy, I want you to write the user needs and the business objectives, okay? What do people need? And what does the business have to get? What's the objective of the business? Obviously, the business wants to make money, right? I don't know if you guys heard today, Foot Locker, if you had money to put in Foot Locker, the share went up 80% today. Nobody knew that, what's that warehouse US store called? Dick's bought Foot Locker. If you invested money in Foot Locker, you would have made 80% profit. Nobody knew that. So business objectives, making money, investments, what people need. Scope. So scope is again like functional specifications, content requirements. What kind of information do you need? And what kind of functionality? Like, maybe I'll use Amazon as an example because it's a pretty popular platform that everyone can relate to, right? Amazon strategy would be the user needs everyday items. People need stuff any day and they want to deliver it fast the next day to their house. I know if I order something, I'll get it probably by tomorrow. The business objective is everybody does drop shipping now. Everyone's entrepreneur trying to make money on Amazon. Third-party resellers, they're all trying to kind of integrate in the business. Amazon makes a killing because I know a few people that did their startup companies. The product costs like, let's say like, I don't know, $7, your product, your market value, or your cost actually. Amazon charges 30%. So they make 30% of everything that you do. Never mind shipping and delivery, storage fee. Like they make tons of money. That's why they're $1 trillion company. So their business objectives are absolute. They're always going to win. Okay. Everyone's making a little bit of money, but the profit margin is very low because Amazon takes most of the chunk. Right. Now they got Prime memberships and stuff. Right. So they have a really good business strategy. Okay. So the scope, functional specifications, content requirements. So Amazon needs the content, the products, the third-party sellers and everything else. The functional specifications, a robust search engine. Okay. They need to have a very good logistical integrated system from a business model. So that's what they thought of and they put together in practice, and that's why they're very profitable. For the structure, you got interaction design. You know, they have obviously a shopping cart that works with the interaction of the customer, saving items, liking items, saving them for later, buy now, right? Put on your wish list, that kind of stuff. Information architecture, right? Everything's organized. You can look for categorically, you can look for products alphabetically. You can look for anything you want. Related items to your search. Everything you're looking for, it's under information architecture. It's laid out in the structure of the website. So all these things are considered. Any type of business you can think of, you can basically break it up into these categories. Then comes the skeleton. This is the interface design, how the interface looks like, the navigation design, and the information design. Okay. So how everything's organized. Again, we'll look at Amazon as a model. And last, the surface is the visual design, the graphics, the images, the fonts, the color scheme, all the stuff that graphic designers love to do. So these are the 5 elements or planes of UX. So if you're developing a product, an app, or a website, and we're talking like big scale here, we're not talking about a little website for like the band that you did last semester, the band website. Band website would not qualify for these things. I don't think they care about a lot of this stuff, right? Maybe if they were like a big band, right? But this is more like a corporate approach. You need to have these things in place. We're talking maybe like millions of dollars of investment, right? At least $100,000, maybe $1 million, maybe 2, maybe 10 million. This is like a big process you have to do it. And you're not doing this alone. You're doing this with a team of people. You're doing it with other designers, stakeholders, decision makers, art directors, everybody. So these are the things you have to be aware of, and you have to have an understanding of how it works. You don't have to become an expert in all this stuff. I'm not asking you to memorize all this, but try to be aware of it and understand the flow and the concepts so you're not, totally kind of illiterate on what's happening when you do work for like a UX company. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the strategy plane. The UX starts with the user needs. The user needs and the business objectives, what we talked about. What do they want and expect from us? How does that fit with their own or with their other goals? Business objectives define success. typically mean making money, saving money, or both. Both have to be measurable. How will we know if we've succeeded? So measurable means you have to be able to measure success. How do you measure your success? You look at your bank account. If you see a plus, you know you got money. If you see a minus, it's not good. You got to measure, your liquid assets or your money, your assets. So you have to be measuring success. Would you rather be happy and broke or miserable or rich? Which one would it be? Right? Look what happened to Kate Spade. She was a billionaire. Billionaire. And she took her life away. So something wasn't working out. Money doesn't make everybody happy. Right? See? Until you get too much, and then you be like, then you have more stress. Having enough is what everyone needs. Some people need 10 million. Some people need 1 million. Some people need 100,000. Whatever you need, you can make it happen. Anyways, look at this. This is the scope. This is a very good example. This is on the internet. It's a pretty popular diagram. It talks about kind of like the communication, how it gets broken between different parties. So functional specifications and content requirements exemplified in this diagram. Strategy becomes scope when user needs and business objectives are translated into requirements for content and functionality, right? Function specification describe the feature set of the product. What are we creating? Like what are we doing here, right? Content requirements detail what's required to provide value to users, text, data, images, audio, video, etc. This is how the client explained it. This is how it was explained. This is how the project manager understood it. So, right? This is how the designer designed it. This is how developer coded it. And this is what the actual client really needed. The client really wanted this. But see, the information was so conveyed the wrong way. It was construed and all that stuff. It became a disaster. You can see the most closest ones are, that one there. I mean, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is a good example. Scope is given structure when we define how the system responds to the user's actions. The interaction design creates a structured experience of patterns and sequences that present appropriate options to users. Information architecture, which is IA, I mentioned this earlier, defines the volume of content along with how it's organized, arranged, and prioritized. We're going to do all this stuff later on in more detail. This presents all the different modules we're going to be covering in the next few weeks coming up. We're going to be doing some exercises and assignments. What do you see here? What picture? What do you notice here? What is she doing? Yeah, mock-ups, right? She's creating designs, how the interactive stuff is going to work, right? Right, basically. The Google mobile first workflow has a very similar, I guess, planning phase. If you want to look at it, they do a lot of thumbnails, drafting, planning. It's a big step of these two very important things. The structure. So the strategy, just to quickly kind of scope it. So strategy, scope, structure. And this all comes from this. So these are the examples of each one, right? You understand? So strategy, scope, structure, skeleton. Skeleton deals with interface design, as we know, and navigation design. So the interface and the navigation, very important, because without those things, the product will not work. The website, the app, that won't work. Structure informs the skeleton of the system, what it may look like and how users move through tasks and information. Interface design determines how to best arrange and present visual elements for the user to interact with. Navigation designs on-screen elements allow users to move through tasks and information intuitively. Intuitively, keyword intuitively. And we'll talk about intuitively and how important it is. Because if you're a successful UX designer, when you make something, when people use it, they'll just use it once, and the next time they use it, they don't have to think. Like when you open your phone, how much thinking do you really do? Isn't it all automatic? You open it, you know where to click, you know what to do. You're programmed. It's automated. It's intuitive. So if you present that type of theoretical approach of designing, you make something intuitive, people will like the product more. If you open your phone, you have to always think, oh man, what do I do here now, right? It's like the first time you have somebody else's phone. I won't do this exercise, but let's say you guys all switch phones, right? Would you be able to get around to it? Not as easy, right? It's like, no, we have a lot of privacy laws here. We can't really do these things. But if I was to give you my phone, you give me your phone, you'd be like, okay, well, where's the email? Where's the text message? You have to learn again how to use the device. Right. The surface plane. This is all the graphic design stuff happens. All the stuff you've learned in the previous semester, this semester, all the design elements come into place. This will be like your favorite phase or plane, because you get to put all your design skills to use. The fonts, right? The typefaces, the colors, the images, all the stuff that you have to be incorporating. The visual design uses colors, images, typography, and effects such as specifically chosen to support and reinforce the meaning of content, guide the user through data, task, or information, reduce cognitive load, enable recognition, and increase, again, intuitive learning. So the design is so well done that you don't have to do much thinking. Just looking at it, you can understand what it means. Be culturally and socially appropriate. That means we live in a very sensitive time now, not to offend certain people, certain groups, certain things. We have to be socially and culturally appropriate. Very important if you want your design to actually work and be accepted. And there is an example of, I think, a website or something like that that's there. The planes are interdependent. This is the skeleton and the structure planes. Choices made on each plane affect the choices available in other planes, right? So basically, if you're doing something here, you should still be able to reflect on what's happening in the other areas. Everything kind of works together, right? Like a dance step. Another example, how interdependency works. So if you have them all like this, strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, surface, what happens here is requiring, this is effort, this is time, that's how you measure space and time theory. Requiring work involved with each plane to finish before work on the next can start is problematic. This is a problem, this is not a good idea. And usually results in a frustrating user experience. Why is that? Why do you think this will not work? There's no connectivity, basically. So imagine if you do something here and you miss something here, something critical, and you keep going, you can't communicate backwards. There's no going back, basically, right? But if they're all overlapping and connecting, you can always go back. Oh, let me get this. Okay, done. Let me go over here. We get this. You're working with all the things fluently, right? So that's why these should be dependent, not interdependent, right? Let me show you another example. That's what I'm talking about. A better approach is to have work on each plane finish while work on the next plane is in progress. So as you're finishing this, you should start this at the same time. So it's kind of like a transition, right? Like a seamless transition where you can easily transition from one to the next. Okay. On the next plane is in progress. So the two inform each other, right? So they're better connected with one another. Because if you finish one thing and you finish another thing, it's not going to work. Picture yourself working on a project. You all go home and I tell you all to do one thing, right? And you all come back and give me that product. Let's say it's a business card, right? So you all make business cards for me for next week. And I put all the business cards here. How will it look like? They're all gonna look different. They're not gonna match. They're not gonna match. They're not gonna connect. You're gonna have different fonts, different colors, different things. But if I intuitively have you work together and you're all communicating, you're all kind of touching base and saying, hey, did you do this? Did you use that color? Did you use that font? Your business cards will look all similar in design and they're going to connect better. You understand? Like a design philosophy kind of thing. So this is why that's a very vague example, but this is how UX works. The planes are interdependent. Okay? It's not always simple. It can be difficult to tell which element or attribute is responsible for a UX problem. Is the visual design inappropriate? Is the navigation scheme the problem? Is the browser interpreting the underlying code incorrectly? So sometimes you might have a beautiful website or a product, and the browser won't read it properly. It could be a technical thing, right? Sometimes it's more than one thing, and sometimes it's multiple things combined, right? Look what happened to Twitter. Now it's called X, the big political thing. When Elon Musk bought it, right? It got politicized. Who's on X, who's on Twitter, like such a good product, and everybody just kind of try to grasp it whichever way. So that's what happens when you have a product that works, but then when it gets politicized, some people just left it alone, or some people don't like it, right? So everything has kind of reason or a way to have evolution in society. It can be difficult to tell which element or attribute is responsible for a UX problem. Sorry, I already read this already, never mind. Again, sometimes it's more than one thing, and sometimes it's multiple things combined. I don't know if you can read the fine print here, but it does have some other design emphasis in there. I think architecture, we got some industrial design, human factors, economics. It's irrelevant, doesn't matter. It could be many different topics. Content is still king. It's why people visit a site or open an app. You're there for the content, right? That's why now you have content creators. Now with AI, everybody's scared. Oh no, we got AI now. There's no more creative content. AI will make it, right? I mean, yeah, in theory, yes, but there's still a lot of human intervention, interaction that goes in between. Is what the user wants available? Is the variety appropriate? Is the content relevant to the reason they're here? Do we have ways to catalog, track, and present content when, where, and how the user wants it? Why are the books there? You guys remember back in the day, the internet's only like, 35 years old, maybe 40, maybe not more than that. 30 years, right? 30 years ago, we didn't have the internet. Everything was based on books and libraries. So the indexing system was different. That's why you have an index page. And you look for page 74. You flip to page 74. You're looking for the information that you're finding, right? That's how things are still done today. But now with the internet, we just hit search, we look, we use a search engine, and we find information. But even back then, when you did books and other types of traditional means of managing information, like encyclopedias, you have to incorporate these elements. There was still a structure that had to be met. It's not always simple. Again, there's the design, the UX, and the developer. You're always in the middle. The user experience oversees both aspects, design and development. They both have to kind of work in sync. Because without one, the other one's going to fail. Without the development, the design's not going to work. So functionality over appeal. Technology has to be appropriate. The right platform is critical in delivering great experiences. Technology extends UX design across multiple operating systems, browsers, devices, and form factors. Technology can't be seen as an add-on or nice to have. It needs to be inherent in how we design. Touch screens, for example, have changed the way we navigate digital information. Because 10, maybe 15 years ago, this wasn't an option for us. We had other, flip phones, Blackberries, different ways of interacting with devices. In the past 15 years now, almost all of us have a smartphone. Anybody here does not have a smartphone? Like an old flip phone, like a burner phone? You're working for like the FBI or something, secret agent. I met one person with a flip phone. Got a little sketchy. I'm like, what's going on with the flip phone? Yeah, they were very secretive. The research process, yeah. I was like, living in their own world, right? Here's an overview of a strategic UX research. Now, you guys are doing the website critique. Next week, I'll present you with your second assignment. It's going to be the user persona. This will fall in line with what I'm talking about now. So I just want you to kind of recollect when I give you the assignment, what exactly it is that you're, approaching in your engagement. So the main strategy, when you guys are doing this type of fundamental approach, is stakeholder interviews. These guys are like the money, the business investors, right? Competitor review. So if you're launching a product, we're going to look at what the competition has. What are they selling? What's their price point? What's their budget? How big are they? What avenues are they exploring? User interviews or research. The people that are going to use the product, you better interview them because you want to find out as much information as possible. This is power right here. It's so powerful that you probably realize it, but sometimes you just don't think about it. Everywhere you go right now, you buy food on Uber or restaurant, what they ask you to do, leave us a review, give us feedback, answer a questionnaire, enter a chance to win a prize. They want as much information from you, from us, as possible. Because from them, this is the most important part to grow their business. Once they know what customers need, they keep producing that the same solution over and over again. Existing product audit. Okay, that means you always have to audit your product, make sure it's in sync, and always have it audited and inspected so it's successful all the way. Analyze and review. So all these things you analyze and review at the end of the spectrum to see how everything kind of lands. So all this information is gathered and investigated, right? Properly. So that's basically what the strategy is. It's all these things together. Again, you might not have to be involved directly with something like this, but you have to understand that this is a big part of the process of UX design, okay? Very important. So if you want to get a job in this industry, you have to exploit these methods and say, you know what, I've done this before. I've done user research. I've done competitor review. I've done this kind of stuff. It's good to have it under your belt. Just to kind of, even if it's an assignment or a class exercise that I'm going to give you, it's good that you partake in such an activity to have a little bit of, feeling of how it's done. Like your website critique might be part of it. The next one will be more part of it. Here are some of the more important stakeholder questions. So these are the people that are investing in the product. What should the product accomplish for the business, right? Very important question. Who are your customers or users? Who are these people that are going to buy our product, right? How does this project fit with your business strategy? How do you expect to differentiate this product? Like, how do you make it different than the competition? How do you make it better, stand out? The other day, my friend was showing me, have you guys seen that sponge called Scrap Daddy? Those Dragons Den and stuff. You see what I mean? Marketing. Put a little happy face on that sponge. I have one too. One is like hard surface, one is soft surface, so it's multi-use. But like, what a simple idea, and it became like an empire, right? It's how you market, how you brand something, right? Don't, why?
Is it, uh,
Right? So she propelled the brand awareness. Yeah.
Those followers were buying this product just because that lady was saying like, this is good for me.
So she propelled the branding.
And then
Nice. Yeah. And then they went on Dragons Den asking for money. Yeah. I remember them seeing on Dragons Den, that show, Shark Tank or Dragons Den. They were on that asking for, and then they invested in that business. And it became I think the person now has 300 employees making sponges and stuff. Right? Yeah. And don't tell me we had sponges before. There's sponges you get at the dollar store. You can get sponges from any store, hardware store. But this sponge is different, right? Taking something so, traditional and transforming it into a brand and making it different and making it something. So again, differentiate the product and make it a success. What technology decisions have already been made? Why do customers use a product like this one? Why wouldn't they buy $1 sponge? Why have to spend $3, $4 when I can get the same, maybe not the same, but similar product for less money, basically? If they use a competitor's product instead, what's the reason? What things do customers complain about most often? Complaints are important. If people complain that it's cheap, it rips, it doesn't work well, it leaves grease behind, it smears. This is important because then you consider that and you make a better product. That's when you do your product audit. User needs, questions for B2B. What does B2B stands for? Business to business, right? So, things like there's the product in the middle. This is the user, the value, perception, acts and uses. This is the improvements, the business, the value, and perceived value. Okay, so they're all kind of in sync with the user and the business working together. It's for business to business users. Tell me what your background. So these are some of the questions like from B2B perspective you can ask. Tell me about your background and role. What makes a good work day for you? How does function or process work here? What are the different groups and roles involved in function or process, and how do they work together? How does this compare to your previous companies? What are the biggest problems and inefficiencies? So every business, every company has some type of neglect on certain areas, whether it's inventory, could be like something they lack in the back end or something, right? So these are the pain points you have to extract to make the business more fluent. Tell me about other systems that work with this one. So these are B2C users, business to consumers. What makes a good shopping experience? These are like some of the survey questions that you get asked when you go get a receipt from your grocery store, or you go eat at a restaurant, you do like a Google review. Well, that's more like a review, but these are more like the questions that they want from you. What things would you usually do first here and why? What would you put off as long as you can here and why? How often do you use this product? What do you use it for most often? So again, I'll take that little spongy. I don't know why it just popped in my head, I guess, because I was looking at something similar the other day. We're doing a product comparison, and that one stuck. So if I was doing that one, you can definitely say, how often do you use this product, right? What do you use it for most often? So you can kind of relate it to any product, and you can see how this strategy works to get information from the user. Could you show me how you did that? Or how you do that? What things do you use before, during, or after this product? This is a very important part because then they sell you accessories, right? Oh, if you buy this, now you should get the spray, or you should get the chamois, the towel that helps you with this. So now you group other products and accessories with the product, right? How would you compare this product to others that you have used. Okay, so that's another analysis from business to consumers for strategizing questions to get proper information to. What's worth doing? So obviously there's a scale here, importance, feasibility or viability, and you can kind of use something like this. If it lands over here, you can ignore the stuff completely. That means it's not too important. If it's in the middle, that's the sweet spot. Strongly consider accommodating this stuff. Over here, a little drastic there, but you better include that part in your model, your business model. So that's how you can gauge some of these necessities. What's worth doing? Because there's lots of stuff you can do. It's like, remember I had to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it? 3, 4, 5. Say a lot of people use the scaling system, so you can use that one as well, or you can use like a diagram like this one and put the actual plan in place, see what's worth or what's really needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. Let's take Amazon, for example. Are product reviews important? Where would you put product review? When people review the product. Would they go here, here, or here? What do you think? I think Amazon will still function as a company if it didn't have it. I would put it here, right? I would not neglect it, but I would put review here. What would you put here on Amazon? Sorry? Delivery? Yeah. What else? E-commerce, like the payment processor to make a purchase. Yeah. Making sure that works, right? So delivery, accessing the purchase, point of sale, right? Those are like do or die. You have to do that. Reviews, like product reviews, I would put it here. It's important, but I wouldn't put it there. Because this is how you can strategize the business model. Because if you have, let's say, $100,000 to invest in a website, you can only do 3 things. You might just do those 3 and leave everything else alone. The other miscellaneous stuff can go here. Until you have more resources, money, then you can invest it and populate these functionalities. So that's why this scale is kind of good to analyze and break things down. What are we creating? Similar to the tree house I gave you earlier. So this is the client. That's the project manager. And that's the developer. Totally not in sync. They're not communicating properly. I can't tell you how true this is. I know you've done stuff before. I've worked in other companies. You've worked for companies. How true is this, right? You've had a boss before, right? You've worked with other departments. Everybody lacks communication. And I've been to many companies. I've seen bigger companies, smaller companies. There's always a communication problem. From the most biggest to the smallest companies. It's still till today. What value does it provide? Who's the target audience? What experience are compelling to them? How is the offering different from both competitors and substances? That's just replacing blueberries with raspberries. This is the most important diagram of all, I think, because you can really analyze how things are perceived. What are the user's expectations? Because honestly, you only have 3 seconds, maybe less. Whether you're like a social media marketing content creator or you do a website or something like that, the first thing people see is the first impression is all you get, right? Those first few seconds. This is the things that go in the head right away, intuitively. What is it? Is this what I expected to see? Does it look credible and trustworthy? Like, will I put my credit card on this website? How many times you went to a website, you're like, I'm not gonna give up my credit card. Like, would you give your credit card to Temu? Not me. Right? Maybe Amazon. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't like the too good to be true. $2, you get all this stuff. We'll give you everything, even a car. No, I don't know. Right? Does it offer what I want? Yeah, and you tell your sister and your brother will give you another gift, another spin the wheel. Maybe you guys should make a Temu app after. What do you think? First use. Experience questions, right? So does it look valuable enough to stick around? What actions can I take now? Like, it should be intuitive, like click here, click there. You shouldn't have to guess on what you have to do. How do I learn more? How do I contact someone? Very important, contact someone. I called Microsoft the other day. I was very disappointed. I couldn't talk to anybody. It was regarding a Business Central software that I'm working with. And I'm connecting with a Shopify store, and I'm doing some other stuff with it. And I needed a business expert on the phone. It was a very, very complicated technical question. I couldn't get a person on the phone from Microsoft to go online and then fill out a form. I know. So now I have to spend an hour looking for questions, frequently asked questions, and going through and none of those questions helped me. So it's frustrating, right? So Microsoft wasn't really pulling their weight in that example for me. Strategy takeaways, things to remember. You must have a clear roadmap to creating value for both the user and the business, because they both have to be happy. Okay. If the business doesn't make money, the product's not going to work. If the customer is not happy, he's not going to buy the product anymore. So they both have to meet a gold standard. Successful user experience design is born from a clear strategy that determines what the customer experience should be. That overall experience must be driven by business goals and user customer needs. Know your users and remember that they're not you. Okay, so if you're the designer, you got to understand your users, but they're not you. They're other people. So you can't kind of think of a self-centered perspective. The trade-off, importance versus feasibility. I already explained that to you earlier. This is just another kind of exemplification of that. Importance versus feasibility. What's important, what's not important. Between importance and feasibility. Importance to the business of solving each problem or taking advantage of each opportunity. Feasibility is that we can build something that does those things with limited time and resources. So in case you're wondering, what's feasibility? Feasibility, I'll repeat it one more time, is to build something that does things with limited time and resources. Not unlimited, limited. I only have $50,000 to invest. I only have 6 months to get this done. So limited resources to get things done. Right? And important is how important is it? So how important is it versus the resources that you have? So this is more like an exercise that you're not going to bother doing, but in case you want to kind of partake in something like this, you can get an idea how this works. List multiple business opportunities for real or made up products. So you can come up with the product and list some opportunities. Rate each opportunity on a scale of 1 to 5 in 2 categories: importance and feasibility. So very similar to that scale that I gave you. So you don't have to do this because I'm going to give you the user research assignment next week, okay? But if you want to partake in more exercises and things like that, I'm always giving you more options. I want to just give you as much opportunity as I can for you to grow and learn stuff. All right, so that was the strategy. So next week, we're going to talk about scope, then structure, then skeleton, then surface. So we might even wrap this up by week 5, and then we'll start with the actual application use as well. Now, this is called a design discussion. I got nothing here, but what we're going to do is we're going to redesign an actual call to action bubble, and we're going to explore the different design fundamental strategies that we can implement as a designer to like call to action content. These are some of the fundamental design elements we're going to consider. Color and contrast. White space, visual hierarchy, complexity versus simplicity, consistency and scale. All these will be adhered to. And this was something we did as a solution to the problem. This wasn't finished, but it was like a start. And this was the thing we had to redesign. Can you see that? Yeah. This is the opposite of all the things I talked about. Right? Everything that I talked about, this, right, is like the opposite. So your goal is to redesign this and meet all those design criteria. So have better contrast, have more visibility, work with scale, work with consistency, right? And that's why I chose Illustrator for this, so you can kind of focus more on design. I don't want you to start learning a new program and learning how to design at the same time. We'll do that after. Illustrator should be something native to you. You're familiar with it. And we're going to redesign this in Illustrator. I'll show you a format to save it as. I think we'll do like a PNG or a JPEG. What do you think? PNG is better because it's more graphical. If it's more images, like backgrounds, textures, JPEG's good. But for solid colors like this, PNG, crisper, sharper, better quality. So we're going to produce a PNG call to action bubble done in Illustrator. I'm going to redesign this. Okay. So I'm going to start you off and then I'll give you time to get this done. You're going to upload it and we're going to explore all these different design elements. This is an example of what we did. So we transform this into something like that. And this is just a start. So here we use contrast, scale, fonts, like we kept it consistent. How many fonts can you use? Different fonts? I would say maximum 2. Don't use more than 2 different fonts. You can use multiple styles. You can use 2 or 3 styles, but the font should be maximum 2. Whereas this one has different fonts. You have serif, sans serifs, right? Look, your email address, you can barely read that, but it's there. It's pink and stuff. So this is what you're going to do. So we're going to open Illustrator. Okay, we're going to use that Illustrator. Maybe I'll do a nice little, I like to do I know you guys are doing Illustrator with Sheila there, and I'm sure she's showing you guys package design, but maybe she's not showing you some of the more UX stuff, which I wouldn't mind sharing a few of my tips with you on how you can apply these tools and techniques in Illustrator and to test you to see where your skill level is at with the application. Okay, so let's first, I'll open Illustrator. I'll do a quick drill with you, and then we'll get this little chat bubble done. And I'm gonna show you how to save it, how to export it properly from Illustrator. Again, I don't know if you used Illustrator for web or mobile use before, but I have to show you that too, since you're learning the program. Actually, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Yeah, let's do that. So I'll tell you what, I'll stop the recording and we'll grab a break and then we'll continue. You're right. That's I was thinking about that actually, but I saw your reaction. You guys were like, we want to keep going. Let's grab a short break. That's fine. So having said that, we're grabbing a break and we'll come back with the next exercise following. All right.